Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. CARICOM Heads meet in the Bahamas. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 16th February 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Multi-Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. Bahamas' Prime Minister and CARICOM Chairman, the Honorable Philip Davis, previews the meetings to be held in the Bahamas between the 15th and 17th February. Fern Carey of ZNS News reports.
With the latest IDB report urging countries in the region to brace for ongoing high food prices this year, regional leaders are expected to ramp up efforts to reduce the high food import bill across the Caribbean during high-level talks here in the capital this week. Fern Carey has that story.
The ongoing crisis in Haiti will top the agenda when heads of government from across the region begin high-level talks at CARICOM this week here in the capital. Apart from regional crime and security, climate change, climate finance, and the CARICOM single market and economy, food security will also feature prominently at those meetings. It comes as a new report from the Inter-American Development Bank warned Caribbean countries to prepare for the prolonged effects of external economic shocks this year that will include high food and fuel prices. CARICOM Chair, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis, told reporters on the sidelines of a water supply project commissioning Friday that food security is necessary for the region's recovery and future development. With this in mind, he said the government is also investing more in agriculture.
First initiative will be what he calls the egg project. We hope to launch very soon. It is important, particularly recognizing what external shocks and forces could mean to a country like ours that's consumptive, that we now turn into looking to how we can feed ourselves. And so there's a priority in our agenda to expand our agricultural initiatives. It appears that Bahamian people in and of itself is not yet attracted to getting into business, so we're going to lead by example and try to move into that area and bring people along and hopefully be able to bring them along and then turn them loose.
The opening ceremony for CARICOM is scheduled to take place at the Atlantis Resort on Paradise Island, with the high-level meetings to unfold at the Bahamas Resort. The nation's chief assured that both venues are expected to be safe and secure.
No security concerns at all, and we are ready for any issue that might arise from the prospect of security breaches.
CARICOM will take place here in New Providence, February 15th to the 17th. I'm Fern Carey.
Meantime, the Bahamas' Minister of Foreign Affairs and Public Service comments on the shantytown issues in the archipelago. Yolanda Thompson-Everest of ZNS News has more.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Fred Mitchell, confirming that the government has received legal framework to proceed with demolition exercises on shantytowns in the country. He says that residents should allow the relevant authorities to handle the matter. Minister Mitchell also noting that the government is working on a legal approach, and he shares the way forward.
And what happens next has to do with the agencies of the government, like social services and the Ministry for Immigration and the Ministry of Works, to work together to ensure that what is carried out is lawfully carried out.
Now, the Minister of Foreign Affairs says the government does not condone discrimination and acts of violence. And when asked about residents and their frustrations regarding the perceived proliferation of shanty towns, this is what he had to say.
We don't support vigilante justice. You can't support it. And the law should be followed. We are a country of laws and rules, and we have an international reputation and a domestic reputation to obtain. What is important at this juncture is that civil society in our country needs to speak to the reinvention, if you will, of the age of reason. The fact is, the institutions of this country are not in crisis. The institutions of the country are working well and doing the job that those institutions were designed to do, and which job they have in law. Those institutions should be allowed to do their work without fear or favor. I know they're capable and up to doing it, and the law is going to be followed, and the law should not be taken into private hands.
Minister Mitchell also sharing that the leader of Canada will be attending the CARICOM meeting in the capital this week. Canada has pledged to step in and help to resolve with immigrant issues.
Have agreed to take the lead in trying to resolve some of these problems, and so that's why Justin Trudeau is coming here for discussions with our Prime Minister. Both Jamaica and the Bahamas have agreed to provide manpower if the United Nations decides that there is a force to go into Haiti again. And the question is, how will those modalities be handled? We obviously do not have the manpower which is required to undertake such an exercise, but we want to contribute to it, and we want to contribute to a solution.
For the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Jolanda Thompson Everest.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Prime Minister of Jamaica Andrew Holness acknowledges that the increased fines under the new Road Traffic Act will likely tempt corruption in the police force. As he notes, there will be citizens trying to bribe officers. Details in this CVM Live news item.
Expressing concern for the possibility of corruption rearing its ugly head in the police force, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says members of the force ought to be subjected to an interdiction process to weed out those who give the force a bad name. Focusing on the security force's enforcement methods, the PM urged the police to apply discretion where warranted, though he believes this should not present an opportunity for exploitation.
I do know that the leadership of the police is very concerned about complaints of corruption and citizens offering bribes or policemen asking for bribes, and this cannot be tolerated because it undermines the confidence of the citizens.
Amid the plethora of concerns being raised by motorists regarding the new Road Traffic Act, PM Holness says the penalties and higher fines should deter reckless driving. As he warns, it is highly unlikely that another amnesty period will be granted.
We have now reached a far way. I'm not saying we're perfect yet, but we have reached a far way in resolving some of the cross-ministerial, bureaucratic and administrative issues which would have justified an amnesty in the past.
Amid issues being raised with old tickets that have already been paid still showing up on offenders' records, the Prime Minister assures no one will be penalized for a system error.
We have seen people posting on social media, I've paid this ticket before and it has come up back again, or I've been charged for this, but there's another charge. Errors like those are being addressed, and I want to give the public the assurance.
Prime Minister Holness says it is important for persons having this challenge to report it. Nasika Aliman reporting.
Still on Jamaica, a district constable shot and killed, plunging the JCF into mourning. More in this developing story from TVJ News.
The upsurge in crime and violence in Seaforth St. Thomas has taken a dangerous turn. This after a district constable was shot and killed while responding to an incident in the community this afternoon.
Now, we were told the 37-year-old cop, Mark Antonio Forsyth, was responding to reports of strange men lurking in a section of the community called York around 3 o'clock Monday afternoon. The district constable went to investigate, but residents said they later heard explosions coming from his direction.
Now, moments later, Mr. Forsyth was found at the back of a house suffering from gunshot wounds. He was transported to the Princess Margaret Hospital by the police, where he was pronounced dead.
Now, up to news time, investigators were still on the scene. This is the fifth murder in St. Thomas since the start of the year. 4 of them were committed in Seaforth.
Developing countries should not be hindered from using fossil fuels to promote their economic growth. That's what Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, has told the International Energy Conference in Guyana, which is being hosted under the theme, Harnessing Energy for Development. TV6's Alicia Boucher has more in this report.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says energy is vital to everyday life and economic growth, and its availability has resulted in a high quantity being produced and consumed. He notes that energy from fossil fuels, gas, oil, and coal has been used to develop many nations globally. But this development, which enables higher living standards, has not been equal. As Dr. Rowley states, developed countries have consumed more than developing countries.
Energy consumption of Latin America, which includes the Caribbean, is illustrated in the BP 2022 Statistical Energy Review, and says it amounted to 5.9% of total global energy consumption, with the Caribbean contribution being only 0.4% of the total energy consumption.
He says the Caribbean has a high reliance on imports of energy products, and countries can spend up to 15% of their annual gross domestic product on these imports. Dr. Rowley tells the Guyana Energy Conference that the Caribbean region has the potential for alternative sources of energy.
With the appropriate investment, the region could substantially reduce its dependence on imported refined energy products by harnessing the natural power generated by solar, wind, geothermal, and hydroelectric sources. Even so, complete or significant substitution for hydrocarbon and its products is a long way off.
He says green initiatives to mitigate climate change are being seriously considered in the Caribbean region, but he calls the pace at which these are being developed slow. He attributes this to the high cost of the necessary infrastructure.
The verbal encouragement, even aggressive demands of the wealthy countries have not been accompanied by any requisite care and investment in our small, debt-laden, and struggling economies.
Dr. Rowley says it is important to capitalize on viable energy sources, and he notes crude oil discoveries in countries like Guyana, Belize, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. He also highlights that oil and gas companies are taking interest in prospects off the coasts of Barbados, Grenada, Bahamas, etc.
Exploration success by new Caribbean entrants in the petroleum industry can be a game changer for the Caribbean region. Fossil fuels, as oil and gas, will remain the dominant energy resource in the near to long medium term.
According to Dr. Rowley, trends like climate change are causing doubt in the minds of investors in relation to fossil fuels.
Especially in the light of a reshuffling of global economic activity and significant demand growth in the developing world. However, fossil fuels are still the main energy source for the world's economic engine and are cost-effective. It is resilient and affordable energy that creates economic growth. Therefore, the concept of climate change should not prevent developing countries from using fossil fuels as sources of energy in pursuit of economic growth.
Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.